Yeah,
Move each other.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's
All
redo it.
right. Dope. Okay. That's good. All right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, there we go.
Welcome to the European Volleyball Show, episode 2. Thank you for everyone for bearing with us through some technical difficulties there. It's always happens sometimes during these live programs, but we're glad you guys stuck around. And Rob, we're ready for a great show.
Yes, we are. Thanks, Dan. Everybody, welcome back. Episode 2 of the European Volleyball Show that's live every Friday. Same time, same place here on the CEV YouTube channel, where we just kind of talk about everything that happened that week in the world of European volleyball and everything that's coming up. And obviously, this is a hot time in the volleyball season. Women's Champions League fourth round wrapped up this week. We know the quarterfinalists. The same thing on the men's side is upcoming this coming week. So a ton to get to. Dan and I will reflect on our picks from last week and see if we regret anything that we said on last week's show.
Exactly.
And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Be active in the YouTube chat. That's part of it. We just want to be really interactive and answer questions throughout the show and at the end of the show. So if there's anything about European volleyball that you're wondering or want opinions on, then throw it in the chat and we will get to it.
Yeah, I'm just moving my camera so people get a better look. Yeah, so it was, a crazy amount of volleyball this week with 24 matches in the women's alone, and we're going to have the same thing next week. So definitely for volleyball fans, this is like Christmas right now between
Seriously.
last week and this week. It's crazy. But why don't we go over the Champions League women's pools? I have a nicely set up window right here, so we can help you guys follow along and see what's going on in all these different pools. And let's start with Pool A. Okay, of course. Okay, yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it. Yeah, and Rob, your audio might have been cut out there. Sorry, uh, but I will put you in here. And yeah, but basically, Rob was saying this is the least competitive pool. Rob, you're not. Can you? Okay, so yeah, this is the least competitive pool at Chetsabatsi, kind of dominating here, and yeah, in Moscow, honestly, Moscow probably did a little worse than I anticipated. They were, for me going into the tournament, they were one of the best teams, but unfortunately couldn't really use their new players to their advantage. Um, okay, uh, they, is it back for Rob? Rob sound. We can't hear anything. Okay, well, let's go back to the other scene for now because I know they can hear you on this one.
Yeah,
Um,
that works. We know that works.
okay. So why don't we talk about pool D a little bit from here?
All right, so real quickly, Pool D. There's really not that much to talk about. Kshasti Basi from Turkey, 6-0, comfortably winning this pool without really that much competition. Dynamo Moscow and Lokomotiv Kaliningrad and MTV Stuttgart from Germany kind of beat up on one another in the first leg of play and the second leg of play. So nobody else even over 500 other than Kshasti Basi. So Tiana Boskovic and company get one of the 3 spots eventually that we'll find out from Turkish teams in the quarterfinals, which is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the story of this Turkish teams and 3 Turkish teams, 4 Italian teams, and 1 Polish team. So maybe not as much diversity as we've had in past tournaments. And Stuttgart, actually, a team in this pool that's made the Champions League the last 2 years. So failing to make it, unfortunately, maybe in this edition.
Yeah, so that's really all there is to say about Pool D. None of those, like Dynamo Moscow in second place at 3 and 3, 9 points. That's not even going to be close to good enough to grab one of the 3 remaining quarterfinal spots for the non-pool winners. So Kshasti Basi walks away with that pool, and I think that's really all there is to say about that.
Boskovic, Jordan Thompson, they're a deadly pair of players there.
Chako Bogu as well in the middle. That team is...
Oh, man. She's one of the best She's probably the best blocker in Champions League.
That team is really good, man.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our match of the week. Even though it didn't really end up mattering, like ultimately, but it was a really fun match. One of the last matches of the tournament.
Yeah. So Pool E, we're talking about Igor Gorgonzola, Novara.
Yep.
And Police from Poland. Match of the week, like Dan said, it was one of the very last matches that happened yesterday. So one of the last matches of the whole week. So what this ended up coming down to is going into the match. Novara was, I think, 5-0 with 14 points. And Police was 4-1 with 13 points. So they were 1 point separated and 1 win separated because back in the previous leg, these 2 teams played an incredible 5-setter that Novara won 3-2. So they had just a little bit of an edge in the standings going into this match. But what this came down to is both teams had already clinched a spot in the quarterfinals. Because Police already had 4 wins and 13 points, they had 1 extra point over most of the other teams with 4. They already knew that they were in. But if they had beaten Novara yesterday at home, they would have actually won the pool. So that didn't end up mattering all that much, but it ended up being a very, very competitive match.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, 2 teams. Police has been doing so well in the Polish league recently. I did an interview with Jovana Brakocevic, which you can find on our Champions League websites. And yeah, they've really been coming to their own. And, Brakocevic, maybe she doesn't get as much shine right now because of Boskovic is just starting opposite now for Serbia and one of the most prolific players in the entire world. But Brakocevic, still one of the best opposites in the world, in my opinion, and really showing that for Police, leading them in scoring by quite a bit right now. And also our performance of the week goes to Agnieszka Kakalewska, the Polish national team middle, who was all over the net this week.
She was everywhere, really utilizing her size advantage. And so it's really funny to me, Dan, I don't know if you noticed this kind of same thing, is that so Police in Poland and Zaksa Kezierzyn Kozel on the men's side in Poland that share a sponsor, I think are the men's and women's versions of pretty much the same volleyball team. Do you agree with that take, or am I kind of crazy there? I think they play so similarly.
They play similarly, but here stylistically, I think it's a little different because I think the men's side is a little more even, whereas the women's side, offensively, they do rely a lot on Brakocevic.
On Brakocevic, that's true.
More than the men's side would rely on Kaczmarek.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a shorter setter that, like Marlena Kovalevska, I don't know if I saw her jump set a single ball yesterday. I think her style is to stay on the ground and set the offense, which is very rare. And Benjamin Toniutti does not do that. But I mean, the shorter like setter contact points lower than average are similar. And then they both have left-handed left side hitters, Śliwka for Zaxa, and then Olga Stransali for
Yeah, Stransali
Police.
is pretty good as well. Actually, we had a really good question in the chat by Rock Addicted, who was saying the exact same thing you brought up about how Police's setter is always on the ground. So you guys, great volleyball minds think alike.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else I've ever seen in the world at this remotely high of a level that just does not jump set. It's crazy to me. Like when I was a player, I always hated hitting off of setters that didn't jump set just because the timing was so confusing for me. But what really impresses me is that Kokolevska and Kowalewska, the names are killing me. Sorry. Setter and middle blocker connection seems to work perfectly fine, even though Kokolevska is so tall and Kowalewska standing on the ground, setting her the ball. The margin of error in that connection doesn't seem to suffer at all the way they do that. It's just kind of what they're comfortable with. And yeah, I'm glad somebody else brought that up in the chat, because I can't think of another setter that doesn't jump set the ball ever at this high of a level.
Yeah, but it's got to be tough on the blockers too, because blocking it matters. The details matter so much. So even that 0.1 or 0.2 seconds of difference can really make a difference when you're blocking as well. So if the offense is on the same page, then
it's a completely different look. And I think we got to give Novara a ton of credit here. In a match that they didn't necessarily need to win, they kind of started going to the bench later in the match. They dominated. I know it was 3-1, but the last two sets, man, were convincing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they've looked pretty good recently. So all the power to them.
Yeah, Micah Hancock, the setter, well-deserved MVP of that match.
Yeah, and that serve, man, she has to be one of the best servers. I think she's tied with 13 aces, leading the Champions League in the 4th round for the women.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's funny. I watched Micah Hancock play in college in the U.S. with her now club teammate Haley Washington as well, and that serve has been destroying people on every level ever since she's been doing that left-handed hooking jump spinner. I could have told you 8 years ago that serve was going to be vicious at the next level. So it was cool to see that in Champions League play here. And yeah, so Micah Hancock, Haley Washington, Britt Herbots is amazing. Smarzek, the opposite, starting to play really, really well. Novara looking pretty complete, and they're going to be a tough out in the quarterfinal stage, in the knockout stage. I'm really curious to see who they get matched up with, especially if it's another Italian team.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to try one more time to get you in with some audio on the other feed. So just give me a sec here, guys, to try and help out Rob again, because it would be really nice to get both of us looking and allow you guys to look at the standings while we're talking about them, because I think it really does help. Okay. So right now we are looking at Pool D, which is that. Okay. So I can hear you, but I think that everyone else can't. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, Rob, can you do a test for me here?
Can you hear me?
You're not on. Okay, we'll go back to the the regular. Okay, now everyone can hear you. Okay, so do you want to talk about Pool C potentially now?
Yep, sure. So to go back to your and I's picks from last week really quickly, that this kind of leads into Pool C. So to go over the formula kind of again for how people make it out of the 4th round into the quarterfinals, you've got 5 pools, and the winners of those 5 pools take 5 of the spots in the quarterfinals. Then of the remaining, the teams that finish second place in each pool, basically, of those 5 teams, the top 3 get the remaining 3 spots in the quarterfinals. So there was a lot of inter-pool drama between this pool, Pool C, and then Pool A, for which team was going to grab that last quarterfinal spot. Because we just talked about Pool E. We said that Police, even though they lost that match yesterday to Novara, they had 13 points, which at 4-2, 13 points, we already knew going into that match was going to be enough to go to the quarterfinals. So we knew they had a spot. We also knew by yesterday that Fenerbahce from Pool B also had a spot in the quarterfinals. They're 4-2 and 12 points.
Yep.
So it came down pretty dramatically to the end, where there were 3 teams fighting for one spot. And one of those teams here in Pool C was Łódź from Poland. They needed to win their very last match against Mulhouse by, I think, a greater set margin than either Busto or Schwerin in Pool A. It turned out to be. So I was fun, like flipping back and forth between all the matches yesterday, like seeing who was going to win. And like Łódź was playing this match knowing they had to win, and they had no idea what was happening in the other pool. So there was no way for them to do anything other than just try and win their match. And so Vakif Bank wins this pool at a perfect 6-0 at 18 points, in a surprise to pretty much nobody. We already talked about last week how they're many people's pick to go to the super finals this year. So a pretty convincing pool win for them. But Łódź, they did win that match against Mulhouse yesterday. They ended up at 4-2, four match wins and 11 points with a 12-10 set ratio. So that is going to come down to the tiebreakers when we talk about Pool A here in just a second. So that was kind of the drama that unfolded yesterday in the 4th round of Women's Champions League, which was awesome.
Yeah, so I think Łódź actually did pretty good in Pool C, winning 3-1 in their match. But unfortunately, Busto Azizio, maybe a little bit of a spoiler there, but they ended up doing extremely well. So yeah, like Rob said, they ended up needing to do better than their compatriot in Pool A. Rob, I think we're looking at the standings, and I think you're in on audio as well.
Oh, cool.
Yep, you're in.
Well done.
We did it. All right.
Excellent. Well done. Way to figure it out.
Let's go to the right pool. We are talking about C. All right. Yeah, and nice. Vakif Bank, I think the best record overall in the tournament with the full 18 ranking points, only dropping 2 sets the entire time.
Conegliano barely one-upped them in 18-1.
Oh, 18-1. Okay, there we go.
18-1, 18-2, basically no difference. Really convincing pool wins by both those teams, and who may be on a collision course in the playoff round somewhere, but we don't know where. They could get put on the same side of the bracket. Who knows? So that is definitely something to look forward to.
Yes, and yeah, like we said last week, I mean, yeah, it's kind of looking like a collision course. So, do you want to move finally to talk about our most exciting? I guess this is our most exciting pool since we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, so let's get to Pool A, the most exciting pool, and I think the most surprising in terms of results. So, you and I talked about last week, Dan. We knew that Busto Arsizio out of Italy was a very, very good team, but neither of us picked them to make it to the quarterfinals because they started that first leg at 1-2. And after you do that, it's just so difficult to, first of all, you have to go 3-0 in the second leg to even have a chance. So you have to get to 4-2 really to even have a chance. And then the tiebreakers have to fall how they fall, and the points in the standings and all that. There's some of it is out of your control, even if you do go 3-0 in that second leg. But sure enough, on the first day, Busto Arsizio beats Scandici, the pool leaders, 3-2. And that was kind of their biggest hurdle to get over. And also Schwerin, the German team who was hosting this round, who I picked to be the second place team that gets out of this pool, beats Rzeszów, but they beat him 3-2. So they missed out on a crucial point in the standings that could have really helped them in the tiebreakers down the road. So Busto with that upset win that they absolutely needed to stay alive. And then that second day didn't end up mattering all that much. Scandici beating Schwerin 3-0, that was expected. Busto beating Rzeszów 3-0, that was expected. And so it came down to a match yesterday between Busto and Schwerin fighting for second place in the pool. And so we already talked about what was happening with Łódź in Pool C, which was they were fighting for the exact same spot. So what it came down to was either Busto or Schwerin, whichever one ended up winning the match, had to win the match by a better set margin than Łódź in Pool C. If they were able to do that, then they would grab the last spot in the quarterfinals. And sure enough, Busto Arcesio, man, completes the perfect week, destroying Schwerin 3-0, and it really was not even close.
Yeah, and it's a little interesting to me. I can't say that I expected this result from Busto because they haven't been a top team in the Italian Liga Volley Femminile this year. But I think maybe I'm biased here, but I think Alexa Gray had one of the best weeks of volleyball in her entire career here. The Canadian
She was
outside
terrific
hitter.
from Canada, yeah, and an American setter as well, Jordan Poulter. That team looked great yesterday. That ended up obviously being the match to watch because we figured out the stakes, and kind of as soon as Woods dropped a set in their match, and we were looking at how dominant Busto was against Schwerin, it was kind of the drama kind of went away pretty quickly, which was crazy. In a do or die match that either team had to win to have a chance, and both of them were very much still alive. I could not believe how lopsided it was. Busto played so well. They played probably their best volleyball of the season all week, and then in that all important match in particular, and a well deserved and surprising spot in the quarterfinals for them. Something that neither of you or I expected last week.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I thought Rezhishov was going to make it through as one of the teams in this pool. And here they are, 1-5, and we even saw in last night's game getting that win. So like really, honestly, this is probably the toughest pool because any of these teams could have made it through.
This was an extremely tough pool. This pool and then Pool D as well was pretty tough. They all kind of beat up on one another. Zhezhov's only win in this pool came last night against Scandici in a match that actually didn't matter for Scandici. They had already won the pool. They already knew that with 12 points. So I didn't watch the match, but I can assume that they may have played a lot of their bench players.
No, it was the starters. Stasiak was out there, and the rest of the Scandici girls. Yeah.
Okay. Good for Zhezhov then. That's a big confidence boosting win, even though they're out of Champions League. They've got a lot more Polish volleyball to play this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right, so we have our 8 finalists. If we want to go over them maybe one more time. Scandici. So we have Scandici and Busto Arcesio from Pool A, Caneliano Fenerbahce from Pool B, Vakif Bank from Pool C, with Łódź is the best non-qualifying team.
Right.
It's Chatsabatsi from Pool D, and Pool E, Novara and Police. So a pretty competitive lineup here of guys.
4 Italian clubs in the top 8 in Champions League. That is a stunning number. I could not have predicted that at the beginning of the season. That league's so strong. And then 3 Turkish teams, and not just 3 Turkish teams, 3 teams from Istanbul, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it seems to be Istanbul. I mean, pound for pound or person for person is probably the best volleyball city in the world.
It very well may be, especially on the club level. That's an amazing hotbed of volleyball on the women's side right now. And so we've got our 8 teams. And so do you want to go over really quickly how the quarterfinals are structured? Just talk about the drawing of lots and the format for the next bit.
Yep, sure. Let's go ahead with that.
All right, so a week from today, next Friday, February 12th, both the men's and the women's sides, once the men's quarterfinalists are decided, as well as the women's are now, the CEV will live stream on this YouTube channel, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. The drawing of lots. And so that is a randomly chosen set of matchups for the 8-team bracket that will be played from the quarterfinals on. And so what that'll look like is the teams that play against each other will play 2 matches, one home, one away. And and the tie breaks will be pretty much the same as the pools you just watched. So if the team wins both matches, they're obviously in. If the teams split the 2 matches, does it come down to points first or sets? Because like we have the potential for the first time in the Champions League at this stage for the golden set, which is maybe the most exciting thing in all of volleyball. So Dan, help me out with the tiebreakers in that scenario.
Yeah, so tiebreaker is a golden set, which if you guys didn't know, a team, if they're tied after the 2 matches, will play another set of volleyball, just one. and that will determine the person who goes on to the next round, which can be a pretty exciting format, which I'm not sure if too many other sports or leagues or anything have tried before.
Yeah, it's so dramatic. It's just one set to just one set of volleyball to decide everything, and it's incredibly competitive. I'm pretty sure it's 15 points, isn't it, or do they play to 25?
Yep, 15.
It's 15, man. That is as good as it gets. Yeah. So hopefully between the men's and the women's side, we'll have at least one of those, or maybe a couple, just to really squeeze all the drama out of it. That's you're right. That's kind of unique to this format of volleyball, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, and I just want to take a moment here to pat ourselves on the back for 100,000 YouTube subscribers. So thank you, everyone in chat. Couldn't have done it without you guys, watching and supporting the channel. And I hope you guys have enjoyed all the extra content that we've been putting out on YouTube over the past 14 to 16 months or so. It's been one of our favorite platforms to use, and going to be expanded even more in the future.
Yeah, congratulations to Dan, you and the CV. I was wondering if we were going to get to that milestone during this show so that you and I could take a little bit of credit for it. But 100,000 subscribers is a big deal. That's a big milestone. Thanks to all the viewers. It's a very big deal for the CEV, for the game of volleyball. So thanks for watching all the matches, the highlight videos, and hanging out with us here on our show. This is a big deal. So I'm happy that happened when we could talk about it.
Yep, and like we've said before, Europe is the home of volleyball, the center of volleyball internationally. So we want to make sure the European volleyball games get broadcast and shown to as many people as we can. So, Rob, do you want to go over a few top players, Champions League, discuss who really stood out to you as maybe like MVP, most valuable players of Champions League so far?
Okay, so on the women's side so far, I think I would be crazy not to mention Paula Egonu.
Yep.
Her pool wrapped up last week. Conegliano wasn't in action this week. They were sitting comfortably at home at 6-0 and 18 points, just kind of waiting to see who they're going to play and, just continuing to roll through the Italian league. But she is the difference maker. She's my pick for best player in the world right now. She's, I think, the most impactful player in the Champions League. I think any team that possibly wants to stop Conegliano is going to have a serious game plan against her. And I think it's just impossible to pick against the way that she is playing right now. So if I had to pick an MVP at this moment, it's the Italian opposite, Paula Egonu. She was just incredible.
Yeah, and if you guys have your own picks, please write them in the chat. We'll see who gets the most votes here. And definitely Paula Egonu, not a bad pick at all. I mean, if you look, she's dominating Champions League in terms of scoring, I believe, as a leading scorer. And also in the Italian league, she's 10% attack percentage higher than second place, which is Britt Herbert's among wings. So I don't know if that properly conveys just
how ridiculous that is. Yeah, it's difficult to describe how ridiculous that difference in statistical production is. Yeah. That's amazing how good Paula Egonu is producing right now.
And it's basically the difference. The difference between Paula Egonu in second place is the difference between second place and last place. Is essentially where that is. But
there you go. That's all you need to say about it right there.
But Ramsey in the chat says we shouldn't forget about Tijana Boskovic, and we are definitely not, because she is right there, in my opinion, as potentially just as, if not more, important to her team than Egonu. Because Chetsabatsi is, in my opinion, the rest of the supporting cast around her is not as strong as Egonu has in Conegliano. So
it's a good point.
She really takes on, especially as the outside hitters, I think, we have the young Jordan Thompson who's playing out of position, and then whoever the second outside hitter too, as well, is not as strong as Conegliano. So for Boskovic to get just such an immense amount of blocking pressure on her all game, and teams, I mean, they game plan around Egonu for sure, but Boskovic for me is probably the most valuable player so far.
That is not a bad pick at all. Yeah, you're right. She might be the most important to her team, and just how, like, what percentage of her team's production she's responsible for. And yeah, how that is, if you could argue that as a weakness for Ixasi Basi, unless Boskovic is as good as she is and has been producing as well as she has. And she absolutely is up there, doing everything she can to get her team here to the quarterfinals very comfortably and further. So they are definitely a team to watch.
Yep, definitely. And then I mean, the third person we have to mention, because I feel like it's starting to be that you have to mention all these three players together, and that's Isabel Hack out of Sweden, who is
Agreed.
again these three like very young, very athletic, like prodigy level opposites. Could be three of the best volleyball players of all time, and they're all the same age, coming up at the same time. I mean, for me, it's like kind of like a Rafa Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic in tennis.
And Djokovic,
It's like three generational talents coming through.
I like that analogy. Yeah, Hawk born in 1999. That blows me away. For Vakifbank, of course, that team is just tremendous. I think they are probably the most complete out of all the Turkish teams. But Isabel Hawk is the reason why they're at that level. Yeah, whoever ends up actually playing one another, if it's between Egonu Hawk and Boskovic in either the quarterfinals, semifinals, or maybe even the superfinals, that is going to be must-see TV. Just that singular one-on-one battle between those generational young opposites, like you said, is man. The game of volleyball on the women's side right now is in a tremendous place with those players.
And there's a 100% chance that one of them's going to be in the superfinals, and likely maybe even two. So yeah,
right, very possible.
All right, so yeah, drawing of lots happening next week. Quarterfinals start February 23rd. We'll definitely talk more about these teams once we know the matchups, because going matchup for matchup is going to be really fun to talk about as well.
Yeah, a lot to get to on next week's show, which will be mostly wrapping up the men, and then after that we'll have the drawing of lots, and we'll get to do all sorts of previewing and speculation about the quarterfinals on both sides for Champions League.
The drawing of lots is before our show, Rob. So we will have.
Oh, it is excellent.
We will have a live, almost live reaction to the matches for both men and women. So yeah.
That is great news.
Next week's show is going to be a really fun one. All right.
Cool. So I get to wake up in the morning and immediately know who the quarterfinal matchups are.
Exactly. All right. So do you want to go maybe preview a few of the men's tournaments here that are happening next week?
Yeah, so let's talk about the men's side. The format this week is very, very similar to what the women just did this past week. So we're playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, pools B, C, D, and E, all in action on the men's side, all finishing up this week. So like Dan said, we're going to know the 8 quarterfinalists at the end of Thursday. We'll know who they're playing on Friday before our show, which is awesome. So really quick, Pool A, we already talked about last week. We already know that Zaksa, Kedrz, and Kozlu, 6-0, 17 points. They're in. PG Skra Belkotov, also out of Poland, 4-2 with 13 points. That's a pretty good spot. I think right now I would pick them to get in out of the second place teams. But you never know. There's a lot that can happen. So I wanted to set the stage of that pool really quick before we talk about the rest of them.
I would say Skra is probably through. I mean, I think that's what we saw Police, I believe, going through with is 13 points, 4-2.
That's right.
It's usually good enough, but yeah, not guaranteed yet.
Yeah, not guaranteed. Even 12 points in Fenerbahce's case on the women's side was good enough. So I feel pretty good about Skra getting through right now, and I think they deserve to be there. I think they're good enough, but I'm sure they're going to be a little bit anxious watching this week because you really never know what can happen.
Yeah.
And that's a good segue, I think, to Pool B.
Okay, let's talk the Italian pool.
Yes.
Are we going by least dramatic starting again?
No, I think we're just going to go in order this time just because it's impossible to know the level of drama until we get there. Although like some of them are setting up a little better than others. But Pool B, I think if there is an opportunity for Skra to get really nervous about their second place finish in Pool A and where they're at in the standings, this is one that they're worried about. Because Lube Civitanova at 4-0 right now, and Perugia at 3-1, 12 points versus 9 points. If Perugia comes back and beats Lube, this is the second time, and they both finish 5-1, then whichever one of them is in second place via the tiebreak jumps ahead of Skra Belkatov in the queue to get out of the second place teams into the quarterfinals. So that is very, very possible. And Perugia and Civitanova have played twice in the last week already, and they're about to play again, this time on the Champions League stage. The teams split the two matches. This is everything you can ask for right here. Two Champions League favorites, to be honest, playing in the fourth round in pools. Both of them are likely to make it to the quarterfinals, regardless of the outcome. But still, this is a must-watch match.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to call them maybe the two best teams in men's volleyball right now. And I mean, the two matches we saw, regular season Italian match last Wednesday, and then the Italian Cup final on Sunday, were both, I mean, absolutely spectacular, crazy high level volleyball. So I think both these teams are going to go through. Unfortunately, I don't see Tur. Izmir's out, by the way.
I don't. Yeah, I wanted to make that clear too.
Yeah. So they won't be participating, but I don't think Tur, especially given it's kind of a down year for them, really poses too much of a threat here.
Yeah, so this is basically just a 3-team pool now, which is why you see Lube, Perugia, and Tours having played 4 matches, even though they've really only played 2. So anything that they would have played, Izmir, was forfeited because of coronavirus, unfortunately. But so yeah, only 3 matches in this pool this week, but that Lube Perugia match is going to be a barn burner. It's going to be incredible.
Yep, for sure. And why don't we move on to Pool C here? Another unfortunately 3-team pool with Jastrzębski, Wygiel at the last second not being able to make it, but we still are going to have a really fun match between, I think, Berlin and Kazan. And to be honest, I think Ljubljana is actually a pretty strong team as well, even though they didn't do that well in the first tournament.
Agree. Ljubljana is good. They took a set off of Zenit Kazan in the first leg. I don't see them getting out here. I think Zenit Kazan and Berlin are just a little bit too good. But in the last leg, when Zenit Kazan and Berlin played one another, it was not close. Kazan absolutely dominated them. And if I'm not mistaken, they're hosting this leg. We already talked about that is not quite as much of an advantage this year as it is in normal years. But still, I think Zenit Kazan, with an extremely high probability of winning this pool. They've had a little bit of a shaky performance recently in the Russian league. They are not playing at the level that they were at the last time this pool of Champions League was contested, but I would still be shocked if Berlin came out and beat them. I really would. I think Zenit Kazan will walk away with this pool.
Yeah, I mean, potentially we saw, I mean, now that Kevin LaRue maybe has a few more weeks with the team, Sergei Grankin, I think, is playing a little better recently. And I think Blue Bob just made a good comment in the chat. He said if Jastrzębski was actually playing in this pool, they would really mix things up in here, given that they're top of the Polish league right now and playing quite well themselves. And Zenit Kazan and Berlin are again, both of them are having probably the worst seasons they've had in a little while. Usually both those teams absolutely dominating their respective leagues.
That is relative, of course. They're still both in good positions to make it to the quarterfinals of Champions League. Berlin is going to have to beat Ljubljana cleanly to get to 4-2 and 12 points. And even if they lose to Kazan, there's a chance that holds up. If they can take Kazan to 5 and get to 13 points, that would be a tremendously big deal towards advancement for Berlin. But
well, you know me, Rob. I still have a lot of stock in the Zenit Kazan pick, given that they were my pick. Zenit Kazan is my pick to win the men's Champions League. So
I was to win it all. Wow.
Yeah. I made that on the Ace Space podcast. It was my official pick, and I was really worried in the Russian league, given Zenit Kazan's play for the last few weeks. But I think it's like Skra Belchatov, another team. Both those teams are just and Modena. We have there's a few teams here that are just playing way better in Champions League than they are in their domestic leagues.
100% true. I think Modena the most extreme case of that, but Zenit Kazan as well. They haven't really been touched so far in Champions League.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to?
I respect you sticking with your original pick, by the way.
No,
I like
I can't change
gotta
now. Are
ride
you
or
kidding me?
die.
Come on.
All right, so let's move on to Pool D, huh?
Yep.
All right, so this is one that's actually kind of similar to the one pool on the women's side. I think it was Pool E that had Dinamo Kazan a disappointing 1-2 after the first leg, and that's the case here with Kuzbas Kemerovo. That was a very surprising and frankly disappointing result from them in the first leg. We already know that Dinamo Moscow on the men's side didn't make it to the fourth round because they ran into Trentino in the third round. So that's one very good Russian team that we didn't get a chance to see at this stage and
A,
won't be competing for the championship.
a very, very good Russian league, by the way. For any listeners that have not been, are only watching a Champions League and not Russian league, Moscow is probably the best team in the league this year.
They're really, really good, and they're not even playing at this stage, which shows you how competitive Champions League is. But Kemerovo, another team at the top of Russia right now, all of Russian League's matches, pretty much all of them are free on YouTube, by the way. So I think TV Start is the YouTube channel. Go check them out. So Kemerovo now with Ivan Zaitsev. Made that big move in the offseason, but 1-2 here. They're gonna have their work cut out for them to make it out of this pool. And we saw Busto do it on the women's side. It absolutely can be done.
Yep. And Kemerovo, I think if like Busto, if the team has the talent together for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, between the way Ivan Zaitsev's been playing, Igor Kobzar, the middles, Pashitsky, and yeah, it's just a fantastic team. I bet they still wish they had Laurie Kerman in because he was great with them. But yeah, definitely still possible.
Foreign player limits that the domestic leagues have obviously don't apply in Champions League. So that is a luxury for some of these teams that have rosters that are constructed that way. I think you and I were both surprised at Modena's performance in the first leg of this pool. 3-0, 8 points. They confusingly went 5 sets with Nac Rosselaer from Belgium, who actually played kind of above their weight class back in that leg of the pool. But you just talked about it, Dan. Modena not playing as well as we're used to seeing them in the Italian Superliga right now. But they came to Champions League and they beat Warszawa convincingly. They beat Kemerovo convincingly. And now it's their pool to lose, which is crazy.
Yeah, starting 3-0 with almost full ranking points.
Right.
I think yeah, they're probably going to get through. I mean, I don't. This is actually probably the toughest pool to predict because
this is a very tough pool to predict.
Because if you told me that Kemerovo and Warszawa both beat Modena, that could happen. That could happen, I think.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And even Nac Rosselaer is good enough to play spoiler in several of these teams' chances. Like they're not going to make it out. They already have 3 losses because of how tough this pool is. But they can steal a couple sets or even a match from really anybody here. This is impossible to predict. It's an interesting question because Modena, this the way they're constructed, it's a test of how far a team can go with an absolutely world-class setter, an absolutely world-class libero, and not that much else. We will see. It's a real test of that type of team construction to see how far Micah Christensen and Jenny Kerbenikov can take that team. This is going to be a crazy pool this week.
Yeah, but both of those guys are playing unbelievably right now.
No doubt about it.
And yeah, I mean, I would still pick Modena to go through because you said, and they don't have anybody else, but I think maybe you're not giving quite enough credit to some of those other guys because I still like Nemanja Petric. I still like Moritz Karlitzek, and we might even see some Tommaso Rinaldi come in. We saw it a little bit in the first tournament. Could see he's improving very quickly. A young Italian prospect. Luca Vittori has been all right, but Dragan Stankovic, a legend.
Love Dragan Stankovic very much. The reason why I'm not that high on their pins is just compared to even the other pins in this pool, and especially in like the top level of the Italian Super League and the teams that I think really have a chance to do damage in the playoff round here in Champions League. Modena's pin attackers are just not at that level. And I've been a Petric fan for a long time. I actually like how Daniele Lavia's played this year.
Yeah.
I think if you get Luca Vittori on a good day, then Modena could do some damage. But I just don't think they have that depth and that caliber at those positions to to do it so consistently at this high level in Champions League. So I'm really curious to see how this team plays in that pool, how they match up against Kemerovo and Forsava, both of whom could very easily come out of this pool even in first place. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
it's possible for there to be I think it could be a three-way tie at 4-2 at the top, maybe. I don't know. There are lots of options here.
Yep. And a good comment from Nicholas Doucette here. Dragon's hair or Zaitsev's hair? Who are you taking?
I've always been kind of it started off as I loved it ironically, and now it's unironic. I love the Dragan Stankovic look, and Ivan's hair, it just changes with the seasons. It's a little bit too crazy for me, so I'm gonna pick the legend in the middle there.
Yeah,
that's a funny question.
I think I'm definitely Team Stankovic here. The Mohawk with, what does he have? A Mohawk with cornrows this year?
I don't even remember anymore, dude. It's Ivan's gone to several extremes with the hair in his career.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's tackle the last pool here on the men's side. Another interesting one, pool E with Trentino, who we saw make it through the second round. Friedrichshafen, who's absolutely killing it in the German Bundesliga this year.
Probably the best team in Germany right now.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Lokomotiv Novosibirsk and Cez Karlovarsko, the Czech team, the lone Czech team in the tournament.
So yeah, I like that Karlovarsko made it here. I don't think that they are going to make it past here. Actually, statistically, they probably can't at 0-3, which is a shame. But so you have Lokomotiv Novosibirsk from Russia, 1-2. 4 points helps versus 3, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for them. I think Trentino's playing extremely well right now, even though last week I picked them to beat Perugia in the Italian Cup semifinals, and boy, was I wrong about that. That looks dumb now. But I think this is still Trentino's pool to lose. Friedrichshafen, I think, easily could be a second place team that makes it out of this round. I think they have a little bit better of a chance than Berlin does. And I believe it's Pool C with Zenit Kazan. They're, I think, identical in the standings right now. But just the way this pool is constructed and the way that Friedrichshafen is playing, if I had to pick right now, I would give them a better chance of making it to the quarterfinals than Berlin. So I'm sure we'll do this in a second, Dan, but picking the team, the 8 teams, is actually a lot more difficult on the men's side than I think it was in the women's last week.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I agree with you with Berlin versus Friedrichshafen, though, because now I think because Konstantin Abeyev, the starting setter for Lokomotiv Novosibirsk, is back now. So I think that will make them a little stronger because they were missing a couple players during that first tournament, which I think impacted them negatively. And I think that's Friedrichshafen's still a very good team, but I think it's going to be really tough, especially given Berlin with the 3-0 win over Jastrzębski.
Yeah, that's true. Berlin gets help. They get a win for free that Friedrichshafen is going to have to earn over Karlovarsko. Yeah, we'll see. I think this is Trentino's pool to lose. I think they win this pool. I think they're starting to peak at the right time. They're in a pretty clean third place in the Italian Super League, right? So they're in a good position. I think they're feeling a lot better about themselves now than they did 2 months ago. And another team that's kind of up to their level when it comes to Champions League play, coming out of the second round, like you said, they had to beat some very good teams to even get to this point in the tournament. And now they're in pretty good position to go to the quarterfinals. So I definitely like Trentino, and I don't know. I'll have to decide quickly here in the next couple of minutes if I think Friedrichshafen is going to make it out or not compared to with the rest of the tournament.
And we have a couple comments in the Italian league, we have a couple comments in the chat, kind of ripping on Trentino a bit. Guys, they lost to Perugia and to Milano. They've lost 2 games of the last 20. I think.
Yeah, come on.
I don't think we can really call it a losing streak when you lose to the best team in the world, and then another very strong team in Milano.
Yeah, and I think that at that point when they lost to Milano last week, it didn't really matter in the standings. I think Trentino had already kind of locked up third place going into the playoffs in Italy.
Yeah.
However you want to spin that take is fine. I'm not on board with the Trentino is slipping at this point. I think they're playing pretty well.
All right, so shall we pick our teams?
Let's do it.
All
Let's do
right.
it. So I've got Pool A. We've already got Zaxa. That's already decided. Pool B. I've got Lube, just because they're starting off leading in the standings. They only have 2 matches to play. I think they'll take care of Tours pretty easily. And even if they do lose to Perugia at 5-1, I like their chances even in the tiebreakers. So I'm going to take Lube coming out of Pool B. I'm going to take Zenit Kazan in Pool C. I don't think Berlin is going to give them enough of a problem to threaten their chances to win the pool, especially with only a 3-team pool. Pool D. Oh man. I'm going to ride with Modena right now. I think Modena is going to go 2-1 this week. I don't think they're going to finish 6-0, but I think they're going to go 2-1. I think 5-1 in that pool is going to be good enough to win it. I like Micah Christensen. I think he's playing like the best individual setter in the world right now. No bias, obviously, that would be ridiculous. But I think I'll take Modena coming out of Pool D, and then Pool E I have Trentino, like I just said. So those are my pool winners for now.
Okay. And okay, so I'm going to agree with you on Zaxa. Did you say Skra as well?
I haven't gotten to my second place teams yet.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just
Sorry.
picking,
Sorry.
just picking
Yeah.
pool winners.
Okay. Do your second place teams, and then I'll do my 8.
Okay, so the easiest second place team to pick is Perugia, or between Perugia and Lube, whoever comes out of Pool B, I think will do well enough in the standings as a second place team to come out, especially because they don't have to play Izmir this week. So that's one of my second place teams. Skra Belkatov is my second place team, 4-2, 13 points. Like we said, that tiebreaker makes all the difference in the world, like we already saw on the women's side. And my third team, This is really really difficult.
I think you kind of picked someone earlier.
You know what? I think I'm going to stick with Friedrichshafen, like I think I said.
I mean, you said they were going to make it over Berlin, so.
I do think they're going to make it over Berlin. I think that they'll get to 4-2, 12 points, and I think that might, which Berlin very well may do as well. I think that might be good enough. That's going to be so difficult. Like even Varsava, who we haven't talked that much about, has a great chance in Pool D to grab second place. Kemerovo could totally do it out of Pool D. But at least for the sake of diversity in the quarterfinals, I would like a German team to be in there. So I'm going to pick Friedrichshafen. We'll see if I regret that in a week.
All right, fair enough, and good arguments there. So I'm going to agree with you on the 2 Polish teams from Pool A, Zaxa and Skra. The 2 Italian teams from Pool B. I think all 4 of those teams are pretty strong and not going to drop any games to the 2 lower teams. Sorry, Pool A is already done, so they didn't drop any games.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Zenit Kazan obviously is going to go through it, but I'm going to say Berlin is going to go through. I think they're going to get a bit of a boost, obviously, from the Jastrzębski Wegiel withdrawal, and also I do like the talent on Berlin. I think the Sergei Grankin with Eder Carbonera and Kevin LaRue, like that's a pretty good pairing of middles, with a very good setter who can play the middle quite well. And also,
I think Ben Patch is back healthy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so that injury to Ben Patch ended up only being a very minor one, only a week or 2, I believe. So yeah, Ben Patch is back, and so their outside hitters aren't the strongest, but I do like Timothy Carly, the French outside hitter who.
Yeah, they have a real rotating cast of characters outside of Berlin, including my guy Cody Kessel. Shout outs to Cody, American, who I've had on my podcast and played VLA this past summer. So I love seeing him do well. But yeah, Berlin is good, and I think you have a good point. They got the benefit of the withdrawal, and they only have to play 2 matches this week. So maybe that's enough.
I think they could get 2 sets on Zenit Kazan. I think they could do.
They could.
I think they could.
They could, and if they do that and they end up with 13 points, they're in. I think that is pretty much guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, and then for my last teams, I think Warsaw is going to take the top spot in Pool D. For me,
really,
they've been playing fairly well in Poland right now. I feel like they've kind of figured out their opposite position with Michal Superlak now. I think he's been the guy. And you saw Jakub Zabrowski even leave the team, so because he knows the position's been established. Hopefully Arthur Schalpuk can play in the second tournament as well next to Bartosz Folek. I think the talent on that team, obviously outside of Micah and Grebennikov, is better, and I think they do take the top spot. So that's my seventh team, and then the eighth team has to be Trentino. Those are my picks.
Yep. Okay. So, man, I can't wait to watch Pool D. I think I want Modena to make it out for my pick's sake and because I like Michael Christensen. But I think for the sake of rooting for chaos, I would like to see that three-way tie at 4-2. That would be crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be crazy. The tiebreak scenarios would be outrageous. It'd be so much fun.
Yeah, so you guys can watch that on Eurovolley TV, and several of the matches are on YouTube as well. So make sure to check out our live streams on YouTube to see if you're able to watch any of those matches. So Rob, why don't we get involved with the chat here and answer some questions going on in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, you can write them in the chat, and we'll use this opportunity at the end of the show to answer your questions. And if you don't have any questions, we can ask our own questions.
Well, I have one of my own questions quickly for you, Dan, while the YouTube chat thinks of stuff to ask us. Yeah, guys, we're looking at the chat. Ask us anything you want to ask us. My question to you is, was Robert Landy Simone's bounce in the Italian Cup finals the best in-game swing of all time?
The best in-game swing of all time? I'm going to say second best because
Ooh, what's the best?
Do you want to take a guess or?
My personal favorite is when Wilfredo Leon nutmegged Yuri Kovar 4-4 in the World Club Championships like 2 years ago. That's my favorite. What's your pick for the best ever?
I would say 2008 Olympics, Murillo bouncing down the line, going under the net. I think that might have been one of the most inspiring attacks. I feel like it's the first attack I ever saw in volleyball where I was like, oh, this is how the sport is played at the highest level. This is what these guys are capable of.
That is a great pick. That is a tremendous play. Remind me quickly, who won that match?
I don't know.
I think we all know the answer.
Yeah. Well, the hit will live on.
Yes, it will. So will the gold medals. I think that now Robert Landy Simone from the other day is the best in-game swing that I've ever seen. Oh my goodness. This play absolutely broke the internet. It was all over your Instagram at 5-1. It was all over the CV's Instagram. It was all over Lube's Instagram. Just ridiculous. The set from DeCecco was amazing. The creativity of the approach path that he ran, the man who thought that it was a good idea to put DeCecco and Simone on the same team as one another, and how is that allowed for everybody else? It's just not fair.
They should never have gotten rid of it. Those two, they should be like a package deal together.
Yeah, they really should. The game is better when those two are on the same team. But
it's like Bruno and Lucas. Like
pretty similar.
Just keep them together. Those guys have telepathy, and they always know what the other is doing.
Yeah, an MVP award in the Italian Cup final as a middle cannot possibly be understated as an achievement for Robert Landy Simone. That was insane.
Yeah. So a couple people here on to the next question have been asking, who's the best women's setter? So I don't know if you have any strong opinions, because I think I have a pretty comfortable number one for me.
I think your pick is probably Joanna Volosh, and if it is, I agree with you.
Yeah, I would say the way she's kind of fits the modern game of volleyball is really good. She's probably one of the best fast setters that we have in the women's game, and she's really good at playing the ball behind her as well. And I think given the roster construction around her with Eganu and some pretty strong middles as well, just very smart, and also doesn't give up much in the block. Pretty good server as well, and yeah, for me, she's the best setter.
Agreed. Yeah, that's my pick as well. I made the point last week, like as as the women's game kind of gets more comfortable with throwing the ball to the opposite front row, back row, and out of system situations, kind of like we've seen on the men's game for several years, that the style and the efficiency and just the way the game is played is going to get more normalized between the two genders. I think that's a very, very good thing. And I think the setter kind of leading that charge is probably Joanna Volos, because she can throw it out to the outside pin so fast. And she can also throw it to Paula Igono in and out of system from absolutely anywhere. And I love the fit, the culture fit, and the play style fit on Conegliano.
Yeah, and people are saying obviously the other one of the other ones is Maya Onjenovic, who is a very good setter as well. But for me, she's a little more old school, and she's extremely talented technically. But for me, the faster setter is better for the modern game. So that's why I would give. But it's so close. Both those setters, don't get us wrong, are incredible.
I agree. So there was another question in the chat from Georgie, who we talked to last week as well. He said, I think you'll agree with me that Svetan Sokolov is one of the best in Russia, but why do you guys think he couldn't make it on Zenit Kazan last year? Georgie is Bulgarian, so I understand why he's asking about Sokolov. So I think the easy answer is that there were two top level opposites and only one opposite starting spot in Zenit Kazan when Sokolov was there. They had to move absolute all-world opposite Maxim Mikhailov to his unnatural position at outside hitter, and he's done that before in his career. But the team, Zenit Kazan, is better when Mikhailov is on the right side. It doesn't matter who else you have on that team. That is just a key piece for them. Mikhailov is so good, and that doesn't take anything away from Svetan Sokolov, because I love Sokolov's game. I thought he was awesome back in Lube. I think he's very good for Dinamo Moscow now. But there was just two stellar players for only one spot on the court that year in Kazan. I think that's a lot of why it didn't work.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, and also I would almost disagree with the premise of the question, because I think out of anyone on that Zenit Kazan team, I think Sokolov was probably the one that actually was had a pretty solid year. I mean,
he was not the problem. I agree with you.
Yeah, I would say it was, from what I remember, he was actually fairly good in a Zenit Kazan. I think, just Mikhailov, which I thought, I was actually for the experiments at the beginning. I thought it was going to work, but he clearly could not play outside hitter on this level. And yeah, it's just it's tough because you can't bench Maxim Mikhailov, and they didn't have anyone else to bring in, and then the season got canceled. So, and again, Zenit Kazan, they lost the Champions League, but they were still first place in Russia when the season stopped. So, I mean, really, like I think maybe it was a bit overblown last year. I think they're having a worse season this year.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think their team is constructed in a way that makes a little bit more sense. Some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. Yeah. But we will see Zenit Kazan on the big stage in Champions League this week, of course.
Yes.
So let's see. I'm looking for any other questions in the chat.
Yeah, I think, Poland versus Turkey. Yeah, that if you guys haven't watched that European qualification match on our YouTube, it's I was there for that courtside, and that was probably the best volleyball match I've ever seen in person, and almost in general. Very incredible comeback. But I think it's probably just about a good time to end here, Rob. So.
Yeah, agreed. Great show. Thanks everyone for kind of rolling with us on some technical things.
Yeah. Apologies for the delay. We're still ironing stuff out, but we got your audio fixed on the second.
Good. We're making progress week over week. So everybody enjoy this incredible week of volleyball coming up. All sorts of men's Champions League to watch. We'll have the drawing of lots for quarterfinals, both men's and women's, right before our show, which is the exact same time next Friday. So we will have tons to talk about once again.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for watching, sticking with it. Remember, tell your friends this week. Next week is going to be the European Volleyball show. It's going to be our best show yet. We're going to have a live, almost drawing of lots reaction. It's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. And by the way, Camille Reiklicki and Robin de Cruyff are two guests joining us for the drawing of lots next week. So yeah, it's going to be a good event.
Cool. Yeah.